Did you know the LA Kings have their own culinary partner? It's Superfood, celebrating 10 years and over 1 million meals served. Since 2020, the Kings have trusted Superfood to fuel their players. Now through Simply Lunch, you can bring that same performance-driven food to your office. Because when people eat better, they work better. Visit mysuperfood.com. That's mysuperfd.com. Or call 213-973-6145. Qualified companies can enjoy a free lunch for up to 10 managers.
You're listening to All the Kings Men, the official podcast of the LA Kings. Now, here's your host, Jesse Cohen.
Welcome back to All the Kings Men. My name is Jesse Cohen. Joining me today, Jared Shafran. How are you doing today, Jared?
I'm great, Jesse.
And Paige Capistran. How are you doing today, Paige?
Excellent.
So the Boston Bruins are coming to town, and the head coach of the Boston Bruins is Marco Sturm, former head coach of the Ontario Reign and assistant coach of the LA Kings. The Bruins and the Kings, at the time of this recording, are both in first place in their respective divisions. So right off the top, though, Paige and Jared both have tons of experience dealing with Marco Sturm, so that's the excuse for getting you in the room today.
Both have experience in Boston, too, by the way.
Oh, that's right. I didn't even think about that. That's right. Both of them Northeastern alums, right?
That's
Yes.
right.
Right. Okay. So, Jared, what kind of coach is Marco Sturm, and how does he have Boston in first place when, frankly, I didn't know what to expect from the Bruins this season, but it wasn't leading the division 20 games in.
Yeah, well, answering your first question, I think for Marco, he's a player coach-ish. Like, I think he's because I think he's a new school style of coach, and he can definitely relate to players. I mean, he played in the NHL himself. He's been coaching for a long time. But I also think, he's not just a player's coach. Like, he can still be a disciplinarian. He can still get mad. Paige and I have both seen him yell at players and get pretty angry. And, I mean, he just had, if you go look back, probably it's maybe a week now, a week and a half ago, he was on social media, like the Bruins put this clip of him, and he was not happy, and he was yelling. And I think, for the fans, they didn't really see Marco in that light, so it kind of pulled a peek behind the curtain for them. But I think that's the style of coach he is. He is a new school coach. He relates well to his players. He is a very good communicator. Players know exactly what he expects of them, but He does have some, bit of a temper at times. And I think, how does he have the Bruins in first place? Well, I think they're definitely overperforming. I think their depth has been really something that people didn't realize, how many players that they have on their team that have been able to make an impact. I think, first of all, Jeremy Swayman, one of the better goaltenders. So if you're getting good goaltending, that's great. But I think there have been contributors really up and down the lineup, and he's pushed some buttons that people didn't think were going to get pushed. Jonathan Aspero, who had never played in the NHL before, we're familiar with him because he was with the Calgary Wranglers in the AHL the last couple of years. Marco was familiar seeing him play on the other side many times. He signed with the Bruins. It was mostly thought to be an AHL player. Marco put him in the lineup. He's played pretty well. So there's been some guys that have contributed to their success that I don't think they recognize they're going to get contributions from.
I had never seen him yell like that. I did see that clip on social media. I don't know if Tyler can put that up there for the viewers, but if not, go look at it. It scared me. I've only known Marco Sturm to be a very friendly person. Paige, you were a captain at Northeastern, previously mentioned. Is it better for you as a new style player? I mean, I'm just assuming based on your age that you're not an old school type player. Is it better to have a player's coach or a coach? What's the opposite of a player's coach? A coach's coach?
Yeah.
Daryl Sutter?
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, but I mean that's the dichotomy, right? A player's coach or a disciplinarian.
I think disciplinarian is.
Well, you want your coach to work you hard. And I think that Marco, he asks so much from his players, but he's done it before, so he knows how much he can push and how much he should let off. And I think that, like you said, he is a straight shooter. And as a player, that is exactly what you want from your coach. There's nothing like being in practice and wondering in the back of the line, like, is coach mad at me? Like, Marco, he'll tell you what he wants from you. It's no mystery. So I think that is the biggest thing from a player's perspective that is so good about the way Marco coaches.
Marco Sturm obviously played in the NHL. Jim Hiller played in the NHL. So two teams going up against each other with head coaches with NHL experience. As a player, when a coach walks in the room and you know their resume, does that make you listen to them any closer? Or like, do you actively interact with that thought of who the coach is and how well they might know what they're talking about?
Well, I feel like in the back of your mind, you always know what the coach did before he was a coach. So the fact that Marco was so successful in the NHL and played for the Bruins for this Bruins roster, it does add more to the table when you are listening to the things he said, because he did it before and he's not just saying it. So I think that this year for the Bruins, like Marco has come in with so much different things, like the Bees, they're playing with a new system that kind of took them a little bit in the season to figure out. Like in the D zone, they're more hybrid now than they played last year. So I think now that when you look at the last chunk of games for the Bruins, like as this has been recorded, they've won 8 of 9 of their last games. They're really starting to show that they understand the system. And another thing I think about Marco, when you compare the Bruins this year to last year and his coaching style in the way that he was a player, I think that he knows you can't just always switch the line combinations. And I think that's something different for the Bruins this year, is that they have for the majority of the season, like during games, sticking with their line mates. And when you're learning a new system like the Bruins were at the beginning of the year, it goes a long way. So I think that little nugget shows that Marco, he knows what it takes, and he knows from a player's perspective how he's going to get the most out of his players.
I want to put a pin in the idea that you can't switch the lines, because you guys have both covered the AHL for, that's what the AHL is all about. It's juggling lines. Players call up, get sent down, etc. Jared, Marco played for Boston, but he also played in LA. I never thought of him as a King. I also never thought of him as a Bruin.
He's a Shark for you.
Yeah, well, that's how I think of him, as a San Jose Shark. How long does somebody have to play in a market for them to be thought of as like a former fill in the blanks? Like Jim Hiller played for Detroit. I don't think of him as a wing.
I think it's got to be multiple seasons. For Marco, he didn't make it that far in LA, so that makes sense that he's not thought of as a King. I think for me, I definitely am old enough to remember him playing for the Sharks, definitely old enough to play NHL video games when he was on the Sharks, so I knew that. And then obviously he got traded to the Bruins, and then you mentioned I went to Northeastern. Marco was playing for the Bruins when I was at Northeastern, so I remember him. Like, for me, I have vivid memories of him being on the Sharks and playing with Owen Nolan and playing with, some of those guys that a lot of Kings fans saw plenty when the Sharks were in their heyday. But also at the same time, because I was in Boston during his time in Boston, I remember that he was there with Zdeno Chara and Patrice Bergeron, and unfortunately didn't quite make it long enough to see them raise the cup with the Bruins. He was moved on a year before that, but that identity that team built over the years leading up to that cup, he was with the team there, and I think he's trying to instill a lot of that back into the roster. And I think going back to what you mentioned, like, does he have that credibility? Well, Zdeno Chara and Patrice Bergeron and those legendary Hall of Fame type players that the Bruins had back then, Marchand too, those guys, they have the confidence in Marco. So not only are the players that are on the current roster seeing, okay, Marco was here, he played here, he's in the NHL for a long time, those other guys, the management, those guys have the support of Marco as well. So I think when you talk to Zdeno Chara and he's like, oh yeah, Marco can coach this team, I believe in Marco, I saw him do this, that, and the other thing as a player, that resonates as well. And Chara's been around that team a little bit more this year too.
Let's talk a little bit more about his time in Ontario then, because Paige, you mentioned, the importance of keeping lines together. I haven't watched every Reign game so far this season.
Come on, Jesse.
But I've watched a few. I've been out there for some of them. Anytime we talk to an AHL coach, whether it's Marco Sturm or Andrew Lord or whoever it is, one of the conversations that inevitably comes up is you don't have the stability of the lineup, right? If somebody gets hurt on the Kings roster, you lose a player off the Reign roster. If somebody gets hurt on the Reign roster, you're swapping out, from somebody from Greenville. Andrew Lord, it seems to me, based on, I have been paying attention, I haven't watched every game, seems to me juggles the lines a lot. And my recollection, Jared, is that Marco Sturm did as well. How much of that is a function of the job and what you're given, and how much of that is just there's a lot of young players on the Reign this year and still trying, new coach, new players trying to find that rhythm, find that chemistry?
Yeah, well, I think like coaches, they always do juggle lines if they need to try and find some sort of spark, especially if it's the third period and haven't put the puck in the net yet. But I think that for the Reign, I think that, like you said, sometimes you do just have to juggle. And when I made the point earlier about Marco kind of keeping the lines similar for the majority, it was kind of just comparing to the season for the Bruins last year with Montgomery. I think that Montgomery just switched them way more than Marco does this year when you're comparing like the Bruins before Marco was the head coach. But to go back to the Reign, and I think that this year the lines have started to be pretty like stable for Coach Lord, like top line, Akil Thomas, Taylor Ward, and Martin Chromiak. Those are the top 3 guys right now, and I think they've been really solid together. And then when you look at like the lower lines, we have been scoring by committee as of late, and I think each line brings something different to the table. If it isn't just putting the puck in the net, I really like 2 rookies, Jared Wright and Kenny Connors. They've been together on the same line right now. They're with Pinelli, and those guys defensively, rock solid. I think they're so consistent, and that consistency is all you can ask for from rookies. So that was kind of long, but right now I like the lines for the Reign.
So Connors and Wright, not the only rookies in the lineup. The 2 that I've got my eyes on are Hughes and Zemer. Hughes just because I think it's an interesting story, and Zemer just because I think he's the youngest, right, on the team, and has, just by virtue of being the youngest, the highest potential still, because he's still, the story's unwritten. How has Cohen Zemer looked so far?
Well, he just scored his first goal in Calgary last week. So right now he's on that bottom line with Jack Hughes. And I think Hughes has done an excellent job contributing every time he's in the lineup. And right now with some injuries, Zemer and Hughes, they've been in the lineup consistently. So the way, here, I'll go to Zemer first. I have so much to say about both of them. But Zemer, he's a workhorse. I really like his work ethic, and he has an excellent shot. We saw it on his first goal of the season, but I think that line, sometimes the Reign, they're like looking for some offense, and they throw that 4th line out, and they are the ones to get the forecheck going, get the energy, and then the other lines can build off of that. And so I like Hughes and I like Zemer. Hughes, so good at playmaking. The way he can make his passes, his hockey IQ off the charts. So I'm really impressed by that rookie as well.
And what about on the blue line? I wouldn't say they're rookies. Well, I guess Kirsanov technically is.
Celine's a rookie as well.
Yeah, right. But I feel like, it's tough because rookie status is.
Here's my roster.
Oh, perfect. But I mean, like, Celine's been there before, but technically might still be a rookie. So, I mean, but a lot of younger players on the blue line, I think, or at least a higher percentage of them on the blue line than the forward core. How are they looking?
Kirill, he is so solid defensively. And I think that the fact that his English isn't the best at all, he's starting to communicate on the ice, which is so huge. And right now he's playing with Burrows, and I think those 2 guys, such a shutdown pair. And I'm really impressed by the way that Kirsanov, his stick positioning, it's a small detail, but from a defensive side of things, so important, and it goes such a long way. So I think he's just really good at shutting down the other guys' top lines, and I've been really impressed by him.
Jared, you were with the Reign. You've been called up to the Kings, so you don't get to spend as much time around the Reign, but thoughts on the transition from Marco Sturm to Andrew Lord, and how much continuity has been retained through that transition?
Well, a lot, because the rest of the coaching staff
right.
has gone unchanged. I think the one thing, too, you guys are talking about line combinations and how things are, and I think the one thing I wanted to bring to the conversation in the American League, as you mentioned, Jesse, you got a lot of call-ups. This year for the Reign, that hasn't been the case. The Kings have stayed, knock on this desk, healthy, and so we haven't had to dip down.
Although, as we're saying that, Drew Doughty just took a puck off the foot.
But still, even that to that point, like Jacob Moverare is up and still hasn't played in games, and the Kings feel very comfortable with him. They haven't called anyone up as a corresponding move, even though Drew's out.
As of the time of this recording. That could change by the time people are watching.
No, but I don't know if it will right away, because I do think there's that confidence in Jacob Moverare. And look, like you said, things could change in 5 minutes. We can finish the recording and it can change. But I think the big thing is that when you look at the Reign, both up front and on the back end, as you mentioned, how many young players they have. And so it's the coach's job to try to win, because you don't want to be losing. And the Reign have played pretty well. They're near the top of the standings so far this season. But they also need to get all of these guys in. And so that's been the challenge, right? Like Cohen Zemer, as you mentioned, he's an exciting prospect. He's doing a lot of good things. First couple of weeks, he didn't really play because they still were trying to get everyone else in the lineup. And I think Taylor Ward's had an really excellent start to his season. He was a guy who you might think might be on the bottom six, and you're not sure how we're going to work all these different players in. And he's been a mainstay. He's scored more goals than anyone else on the roster. So he's not coming out of the lineup. But I think for Andrew Lord, the challenge is, how do I win games, but also develop some of these players? Last year, Jacob Dvorak was the youngest player on the roster, and it was the challenge of Marco Sturm to have Dvorak contribute so that his confidence is there and that he starts learning the league. But also, he wasn't ready to contribute in a major, like he wasn't playing 20 minutes a night because he just wasn't ready for that yet. So how do you have him play that 12, 13 minutes and contribute, but also like you have to kind of shelter him a little bit and understand when is the right time? Because if he plays too much too soon, that's not good for his development. So that's the tricky challenge for Andrew Lord, is he's starting to learn. Andrew Lord, when he was in the Quebec League last year, like he had an extremely young team, but it wasn't the same. You're not developing players for an NHL team. Like you can kind of just do what you think is necessary at that time. You have a little bit of a longer curve. Here, like you're developing guys for the LA Kings right now. The Kings are hyper focused and hyper aware of what's going on a day-to-day basis at your AHL roster. So his decisions are seen by the Kings right away. And when he was in the ECHL with Greenville, I think a great opportunity for him to learn how to be a coach in professional hockey. But it was different. Like you don't have your NHL affiliate like looking at every single move, and your number one job is just to win games and manage the roster. Whereas right now, you don't want to be losing games, but you also have to make sure that some of these young players, like we talked about, Odo Celine, Kirsanov, I mean, there's a lot of guys on the roster, Angus Booth now that he's healthy, that need those minutes, and they're going to need to find ways to contribute in those ice time situations.
Final question for both of you. We'll start with Paige. I want to touch on something Jared talked about as far as the AHL being a development league for players. It's also, I mean, it's a development league for players, but it's a showcase for everybody. So Adrian Kempe starts out playing for the Manchester Monarchs, I think before they moved to Ontario, wins the Calder Cup. Jeff Malott spends a lot of time in the AHL. He winds up getting called up to the Kings now. He has a fourth line role. Marco Sturm spends a couple years as a head coach in the Ontario Reign. He's now an NHL head coach. Jared Shafran started in the ECHL, moved up to the AHL now with an NHL club. I mean, the list of people that have made the transition is long. Is that something that gets brought up in the locker room? Are the younger players aware, and not even the younger players, but someone like a Glenn Gaudin or a Joe Hickett's, guys who have played in the NHL whose careers are not over, who can see a guy like Jeff Malott and say, "Oh, it's not inconceivable that there's a path, no matter how old you are, no matter how far into your career you are." Marco Sturm was a player, then an international coach, then an assistant coach in the NHL, then an AHL head coach. Some people might have seen that as a step back, but no, he winds up as an NHL head coach. Is that frequently discussed?
Well, I feel like when we're talking about Marco Sturm and the fact that the amount of times last year we would interview him after a game and he was like, "Guys, got to stick with it." Like, stick with it. I feel like that's just a Marco quote. And I think that Marco has showed that he has so much patience. And the fact that he was assistant coach with the Kings and decided to go down to the AHL to become the head coach and get experience that way. Like, not everyone would want to go down. So I think the idea of trusting the process, sticking with it, is something that Marco, it's an example of he does it, he tells his players to do it, and he doesn't just talk the talk, he walks the walk. Jeff Malott, last year, he was one of the best players on the Reign team, and he stuck with it. And look at him now. Since he's been up with the Kings, we haven't seen him back with the Reign. So I think that just the leaders in the Reign locker room, they know that just you got to keep working hard. I mean, for everyone's dream is to play in the NHL. So it's not like it's a mystery what everyone wants. And I think that just they know that to have patience and to keep working at it. And eventually, if you do all the little things right and keep working hard and believing, you'll get there.
Marco's first year in the AHL, I mean, he admits, like, it was an adjustment for him. He had never been in minor league hockey anywhere. So minor league hockey in the American Hockey League, yeah, it's hockey. You play 72 games, but like there's dance mats coming out on the ice during intermission, and there's all these weird songs being played, and there's different marketing techniques that you wouldn't see an NHL team do. And Marco was like, what do you mean we have to do these things? Like, why is the clock set up that way? Why is like, and just kind of, I became his resource. Like he just kind of leaned on me to help explain, well, why do we need to do those things? Well, why is that important? And I think the progress that he showed, just kind of understanding how things need to be and how what the focus needs to be for the players, as far as obviously their number one goal is playing. They want to make it to the NHL. That's their dream. But like the AHL team is a business too, and there's other things that come with that, whether it's community related or some of the other things that are going on during a game day that have to happen, and why that has to happen. You know, there were some great moments with Marco trying to have him understand that, and the jump that he took from year 1 to year 2, and then from year 2 to year 3, I mean, you could see how much he grew as a coach because he didn't have to worry about some of these things because he had gone through it more. So, I mean, that was really cool to watch him take those steps, and now to see him in Boston, which is an Original Six team, a major hockey market, you know, the media every day, like, I can't wait to see him in a couple days, because I'm going to say, like, you thought I was a pain to ask you for doing these things, and you were like, why do I have to do these things? Can't even imagine the types of asks that the Bruins are giving him, and the things, and obviously it's different. You're in the NHL, you're making more money. It's different, but like, I mean, it was cool to see him have to do some of these things and understand why they're important, and now see him do it at an NHL level. And I guess the other thing is, you look at Jeff Malott, his story is so important for all those AHL guys. And you mentioned Joe Hicketts, Glenn Gaudin, but how about like Martin Chromiak or Francesco Pinelli, guys who aren't rookies? Like we talked about some of the rookies, but Martin Chromiak, like he's kind of counted on as more of a veteran. He's still young, but now he sees, okay, well, Jeff Malott, it took him 4 full AHL seasons before he really got a chance in the NHL. And for Martin Chromiak, like this is his 4th season now full time in the AHL. And he knows that his dream still can happen for him. So to have him see that, I think is really important. To have Taylor Ward see that, I think is really important. I think for Taylor Ward, like he saw Akil Thomas get a chance. He's now seen Jeff Malott get, like, you need those types of things to happen for your group, for them to keep their eye on the prize and have them refocus. And especially with some of those younger guys, like that is key to have them look at that. And then Andrew Lord can say, do what this guy did. Here's an example. You stick to that path, you're going to make it.
Excellent. Well, we wish Marco Sturm all the best in Boston, but not when they're playing the Kings.
Definitely not this week.
Paige, Jared, thank you very much for joining me. Thanks for watching Kings Fans. We'll talk to you soon.